Well, first off, excited for our guys today. My staff plays in this outing. It's kind of a good outreach with the quarterback club, a group that's been here a long time. Been very supportive of Illinois football, obviously. So fun day in that regards for those guys. Just a couple things from our program. Obviously updated last night with Zachary Franklin hit town. So we kind of have now probably within a player or two of non-scholarship players of being fully vested. We have one or two freshmen that are still coming in that haven't transitioned from high school yet, but we expect those in here before the next 2 weeks. We thought by July 1st we should have our roster pretty much set, other than maybe a few PWOs, just because we lost a couple guys that, thankfully for them, they got full scholarships at lower levels. So fun and excited for them. But other than that, our guys are in week 3, actually going into week 4 right now. The way we kind of set it up this year is we have 8 weeks of a summer program, 4 weeks with our coaches and our players. That will be done this Saturday after our last workout. And then the next 4 weeks, they'll kind of be on their own. And I would tell you, in my 16 years as head coach, you actually have teams grow more during that time when we're away than when we're together. Just the chemistry and the vibe, and it's been really, really good to this point. So excited for that to happen. Really nothing significant from an injury standpoint. Literally all the guys that we had have been full go. We've had a couple guys with some soft tissue with weather like this in a workout our guys have been doing. Just had a couple guys, but nothing that would limit or prohibit anybody from fall camp as we speak right now. So really excited about the growth team. Couple other announcements. We obviously finished with 3.12 spring GPA, which was the highest in school history. This is 3 straight semesters of the highest academic record that we've ever had in Illinois football ever. So excited about the growth of our guys off the field as well, and excited about where this fall camp will go. So with that, open up for easy questions.
Just to be clear, did you say Zachari's in town?
Yep. Yeah, he got in town last night, going through the process of getting the cap acclimated. There's a lot of things that they got to go through from a medical standpoint before they get back on campus, but he should be good to go. Hopefully full go rodeo by Wednesday.
Obviously Barry knows him well, but how did this all come about? What do you feel like he asked for?
Yeah, full transparency. We reached out to him 2 years ago when this opportunity came, before he even went to Ole Miss, but because of the status of where he was as a student, we couldn't get one of the unique challenges here at the University of Illinois is we have some pretty high standards about after a person has been in school for so long, their transferable hours and their ability to come in compared to the rest of the country really puts us at a disadvantage. It's nothing we can do. It's the way the university is wired. So that's been a challenge since I've got here. Art Sikowski was really one of the first that we had ever admitted with so many hours. But because of that, he had to pass an X number of hours before he could be eligible for that first game. Art went through basically an entire year of school in that spring and summer that was unprecedented, right? So it's great for the students. We want them to graduate, but on the same account, it puts Illinois at a huge disadvantage in the late portal transfers, the guys that are in their 3rd and 4th years.
What's Zachary added?
What does Zachary? Yeah. Well, obviously a very productive player. I think I saw a stat the other day that he was the most productive player returning in college football. I think once you get around him, meet him, he's very mature, accomplished a lot. One of the things Barry said, even going back to a couple years ago when we started recruiting him, is just his football intelligence, awareness. I think the idea of him coming in and have the familiarity that he has with Barry was a very big part of it, but also he loved the feel of our campus. Came in and saw us actually during a downtime when our students weren't here, so he hasn't been around a lot of our guys, but I think he'll have an immediate impact in a positive way.
After everything he went through health-wise at Ole Miss last year, do you like where he's at in that regard, just coming back?
Great question, just can't comment, right? Every player's health is his status, right? He's coming in here, we'll know where he's at once he gets here.
Okay. I guess with this latest group of transfers, that's the summer transfers, did you feel like you addressed maybe the needs you thought you wanted to after spring?
You know, I think the part that's really been fun to engage in is it's not a free agent world, but it is in the fact that, like, what we've treated the portal world window is trying to address needs that we have immediately on our football team. So going back to last January, addition of defensive linemen, offensive linemen, guys that we felt we needed an immediate impact in the room. Depth-wise has been a huge emphasis. Even Zachary, we thought we needed one more wide receiver in that room that brings a little bit of maturity. We have a lot of young guys. We don't have a lot of depth and experience in that room after, obviously, the departure of Casey and Isaiah. So, yeah, I'm excited. We started working on this literally in September, October, November a year ago. We evaluated hundreds and hundreds of kids that were either in the portal or getting ready to get in the portal, and that hasn't really stopped until literally last week.
Go ahead. It's a big recruiting month for you guys, Brett. There's still half the month to go still.
Yeah.
What do you feel like you guys have been able to do so far in June?
Really just one more weekend. Actually, the dead period begins on Monday. So this weekend coming up, we'll have a pretty significant group in that is we're getting pretty full. Right now, we knew this was going to be a small class of the 2025 group. So just kind of where we're at, we've been very selective on who we're bringing in. We've canceled quite a few kids that we just don't have the opportunity to bring on anymore. So it's been a challenge like June always is. It's literally our best recruiting month because our players are our best recruiters. No matter what we say as coaches, no matter what all of our staff thinks, right? They do a really good job to get them interested, but the 48 hours when they're here on campus and the time they spend with our student athletes and our support staff ends up being the biggest deal.
Quarterback recruiting is going pretty well. I know you can't comment on unsigned kids, but what's Barry been selling to these kids, you think?
Well, I think just familiarity. My first year we had inherited Brandon Peters, who was a transfer, right? And then obviously Tom DeVito in our second year, who we had lobbied and petitioned a way to hopefully come back for his third year. When that got denied, that opened the door for Luke. And then I think the growth of Donovan has just been awesome, right? To have now a player that we've actually grassrooted recruited and see him playing the way he is. I think those two guys, the complementary play of those two guys this spring really highlighted what I think we could be capable of. Trey Petty, it was kind of funny yesterday as a head coach, especially since I became a father, I've always kind of looked at that day a little bit different, right? I've always gotten comments from our players, but I think my first text of the day came from Trey Petty and my last one came from Sidney Brown, and it kind of just shows you as a coach, it reminds you every day of who you are and what you represent, right? And I think the growth, I told Trey when I responded back to him, like just the growth that he's shown since January has just been awesome. He was out there Saturday morning at workouts, kind of speaking and having a good volume on the field, right? For a true freshman quarterback to have that kind of comprehension is pretty awesome.
In your career as a head coach, has June always been that month for you? Have you put emphasis on it?
No, just because, and when I started, 16 years ago, there wasn't even a June visit possible, right? So when the June visits became real, actually the spring visits became real. May was never an option for us at Illinois because our players are gone. And like I said, our best recruiters are our players. So one of the timing issues that factors in here at Illinois is that, when you get done with your spring, they became eligible for visits on April 15th. That's the end of spring ball, and it jumps into May, and our players aren't on campus. So that's kind of what led to June. But June kind of embodies everything. They get to see our players work out. One of the highlights of the weekend for me as a coach is they get to watch our kids work on the grass with our staff and our players. We also do player panels, student hosts. The parents get to ask kids questions that, without us in the room, which ends up being one of the highlights of the weekend. I think one of the reasons we bat such a high percentage of commits once we get guys on campus is because of the reality of who we are. I think a lot of places also have that, but it's usually not as positive. So June's a great month, and it's a good representation of Illinois.
Which players are the best salesmen?
Really, we kind of just it varies. Sometimes some kids want positional players, right? Some kids like people that they may be familiar with either personally or someone from their neck of the woods. We usually involve 2 to 3, sometimes as many as 4 to 6 players with each kid. And then the player panels, we just change up all the time. Sometimes a little bit of mix and old, young and old. Well, also geographically, if we have for us, this next coming weekend has been a little bit more emphasis on the Florida kids, right? So with the first weekend is usually an emphasis on our Midwest in-state offers, and then towards the end of the month are more of out-of-state offers.
Coach, with the guys that just left for the NFL, do you talk to them a lot? Like, are they, they're all going through stuff now.
Yeah.
Ready to go. How much communication, and how much do you feel like they feel like they're better because of what they went through with you guys?
Well, even just some of the messages I got yesterday were pretty awesome, right? But I remember distinctly, it was right about the beginning of OTAs, like when the rookies went to camp.
Yeah.
And I got a text, and it was from Isaiah Williams. And I opened it up, and it was Isaiah Williams in a cool tub recovery pool with Frank Ragnow at Detroit, right? And I just started laughing because, Isaiah was like this big compared to Frank, but Isaiah has heard me reference Frank since I came here. He was literally one of the first slides I showed when I took over his program was the evolution of Frank from a freshman to a junior.
Sure.
In the body composition. He obviously since then has become the highest paid center in NFL history. And I then took that picture and I sent it on to the group of coaches that knew both of those guys, right?
Yeah.
So Tank Wright down in strength conditioning, Pat Pearson in our media department, Mark Torresani, Pete Wyden, Kevin Richardson, Aaron Henry, a bunch of Grant Morgan. So guys that knew both of those guys, I sent it on to that group, right? And I said, look at these two. And Tank made an interesting point. He said, imagine that, two of Coach's former players buying into post-practice recovery, right? So I don't know how many cold tubs or recovery tubs Detroit has, right? But those two were in there, and it kind of just made a statement to me, right, about the way we say and do things carries over way beyond here.
And I'm going to ask you about one more after this. Your June camps. I've talked to a bunch of kids that attend those camps,
Uh-huh.
know them where they are, and they say the instruction is just unique from everywhere else they've been. How much preparation do you put into that, making those camps what they are?
Great point, but I would also say it's just a point of, for me as a head coach, I go back to when I went to camp, right? Like I went there and I learned more about the game of football in a 3-day window with the coaches I was around than any other point in my high school career. So one of the things we do is we keep our camp numbers really small. So tomorrow we'll have, I think we're pre-registered right now, right around 148, 150 kids. And that's kind of ideal. So we literally obviously have 10 coaches, right? And to me, those 10 coaches have to run every drill at those stations where those kids are. And I want them, one of the things I tell campers when they come to campus, like, listen, you're coming from wherever you're coming from, whatever high school, whatever state, you run your scheme and your fit, right, to you at high school. But what we're going to practice here are football fundamentals. And we really stress that to them. One of the favorite parts for me is to watch our current players because we can hire them. They work with our players or with our prospects, or not prospects, campers, and to see the interaction, to see them teach, right? So I thought it was interesting. I heard Corey Parker say the other day that when we went to the Vikings training facility a couple weeks ago, and Corey was in a meeting, and he made reference to the DB coach, talked about, they retain X amount of what you teach, X amount of what you write, but they retain 90% of what they teach to another person, right? So anytime your players are teaching someone else how to do things, that's obviously been something that's mentally engaged in them, and that they can now regurgitate it to others, and that's kind of truly how you make progress.
Coach, how did you approach June 15th with the 26th class? Did the coaches start working the phones at midnight?
Yeah, no, I tell people all the time. So even back in the day, when there used to be rules changed, like people would call at 12:05, and I'm like, listen, bro, you should be asleep and I should be asleep, right? Like, especially during the middle of the week, sometimes it'll fall on a school night on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I guess there's a place for it, but that's kind of not what we are, right? Like, I think we're more of I would rather have you maximize your hours of sleep. Like, I'll literally tell them that, right? So, yeah, from Saturday to Sunday, and then especially, I think the true measure will be when we start next Monday, when it goes to a dead period, right? And then to be able to maximize July to get introduction to that 2026 class. We've already done a really good job of laying the inroads to that, but the communication factor, like we even had a 26 quarterback in the other day, right? That, like, he's very engaged with who we are, but I haven't been able to just instantaneously reach out to him and his parents, right? Because of the rules. But now, because of Saturday, and he was just here for a second unofficial, like, to have that daily communication with him, hopefully that's when we can set ourselves apart. In this world that we're in, which hopefully is going to an end, the NIL outbid everybody, like there's an element to there that is really, really positive for the kids, but there's an element that takes away from what true recruiters were able to do. Like, I've been engaged with a little bit of back and forth sometimes with some coaches, right, that just write big checks and think they recruited really well, right? Like, I think the best part you can do is show who you are. And I always say this, NIL was instant money. That's what the I stands for. NFL stands for forever money. That's what the F stands for. So I think to sell what we do and how we've been able to build guys is something that hopefully is going to benefit all of us.
Thanks, Coach.